name is Alan Mautner. I am the music director and conductor of the La Mirada Symphony. This is a position that I have held since 2014. The orchestra itself has been around for about a little over 60 years, and we have continued to give free concerts to the community of La Mirada and surrounding areas. We do our concerts in the La Mirada Theater, and we get a good house. We're able to keep our concerts free, and so it's great to bring this wonderful music to the community, and they don't have to drive all the way to LA and pay a lot of money to hear a really fine orchestra. So we're happy to be doing this. That's a good one. It is something that kind of evolved. My degree at Cal State Fullerton was a Bachelor of Music in Cello Performance. So I wanted to be a performing cellist, and I right after I graduated, I started doing that, and I started performing here and there, getting my name out there, eventually getting to contractors and doing studio work and casual work and things. So I was an active cellist, but then, I think it's sort of a destiny for all of us performing musicians that we do some kind of teaching, whether private teaching or sometimes we get hired by a school and come in and coach our cellos, and once a week, we'll pay you a little something. So it's really a good way to kind of subsidize your income, especially when times are a little bit tougher. But one event that happened with me was in 1989. I got a job at Bell Gardens Intermediate School in the city of Bell Gardens as a teaching assistant. I realized when the teacher I was working for would at times say, hey, Alan, could you work with these trumpet players? Could you work with these flute players and just, get them up to speed? And I realized at that moment that I was able to convey, the ideas of the music to the students, and they were picking up on it. And it was just, I realized, I guess I have a knack for this. That's probably the rewarding part, is watching them mature, watching them grow. The performances that I get to do, and again, watching the students grow, that's the reward of it all. The very first La Mirada Symphony concert I conducted was back in 2010. And in 2010, they were having a conductor search. The current conductor had stepped down, and they wanted to have a conductor search. I'd been the principal cello in the orchestra for 3 or 4 years prior, and I was asked to submit an audition. I was one of the finalists. I was one of 5 conductors. I didn't get the job at that time. So they asked me to stay on as the principal cellist. I said, okay, sure, I'll do that, no problem. And then in 2014, that summer, I got a phone call saying, would you like to be our new music director? And I'm okay, and then of course, the person who got the job, it didn't work out, unfortunately. And so I came in, and, again, it was one of those things. Here I am in front of colleagues and friends and even people I really didn't know very well. And now I'm up here as the guy. And I think, trying to gain people's confidence, whenever you're changing conductors or a new person comes in any position, there's always that, what's going to happen here? What's he going to do? And so I tried to go in there, to kind of put everybody at ease, and just to, it's always been kind of my philosophy with La Mirada is I want this to be an enjoyable experience for them. Many of them are community players, many are professional, many students, other professions, and they're part of this orchestra because they want to be. And I nobody wants to spend their Tuesday nights and coming in and have someone yell and scream uncontrollably at them. And believe me, I've had my share of those. So it's always been my goal to keep it, friendly, but I'm making sure they understand what my goals are and, what my intentions are. Going back to that first concert, There is sort of a funny little story. One of the pieces that I did in that concert was the Mozart clarinet concerto, and my really dear friend Helen Good Castro was the clarinet soloist, and it has in it the second movement is one of the most beautiful melodies, beautiful moments that Mozart ever wrote. And to this day, I just, I could listen to that forever. Well, we were getting ready to start this, and somebody backstage in the theater thought that this would be an appropriate time to open the loading dock doors. Because I guess some percussionists were trying to get some things out. So it makes this huge rattle, really loud. And I'm sitting there on the podium going, like, really? And so we had to wait for them to shut it. So I was just standing there on the podium waiting for this obtrusive noise to end so I could begin this beautiful movement. So that was really my big unfortunate takeaway from that first concert. But that hasn't happened since, so we're in good shape. We used to be very active in doing outreach. At least once a year, we would have a children's concert that would kind of line up with one of our regular scheduled concerts, and we would do two concerts, and they filled up that theater. The theater holds 1,200 people. And we filled it up. So we had 2,400 kids over two concerts that we brought in, and we did an outreach concert for. It was wonderful. I mean, I always thought that, hey, if we inspire a couple of kids to want to take up a musical instrument and try to make it fun for them, then we did our job. And we did this in conjunction with the Norwalk La Mirada school district. And we had a good relationship with them. Since the pandemic, we have not been able to reestablish that. There have just been changes to how the school district does those things, and plus the La Mirada Symphony, our funds are not what they were. So, we are always looking for donations, and we would love to see if we can get some donations that are earmarked for the education. And years ago we used to go into schools and perform like small chamber music, just just to get kids know, hey, La Mirada Symphony is here. And if sometimes if they don't get a chance to see live musicians play in a very intimate setting, it's very inspiring for the students. I think every concert I've conducted has some sort of memory connected with it, whether it was just, we have this large work and we made it through, hurrah, or, there was just something significant. I think one of my most memorable, though, happened, let's see, I want to say, November 2016. My dear friend Cecilia Zahn, what beautiful cellist, did the Elgar cello concerto, and then we did the Ray Vaughan Williams Symphony No. 3. My father passed away the week leading up to that, and my father, most of the people in the orchestra knew my father. My dad was a longtime music educator, taught in the LA public schools for 32 years, something like that, and so that was etched in my memory. Thinking about that. So that was a good one. I think a lot of people don't realize that one of the things about being an effective, I want to say a good, but an effective conductor, is your use of rehearsal time, which is very invaluable. I've played in so many orchestras where the conductor just doesn't use their time very well, and they run out of time, and then they want the orchestra to stay after, and it gets kind of ugly. So one thing I've always tried to do is make sure that I have a game plan going into a rehearsal, and I actually have plotted out time allotment. So that I spend this much time on this piece, this much time on this piece, maybe a little bit more time next week, you have to sort of plot it out. when you come to a performance, you're seeing the final product, and a conductor can, be almost more of a showman. You can see, like to use Maestro Dudamel as an example, people come to see what he does with the orchestra. But the best education I have is when I go to a Philharmonic rehearsal and I watch him rehearse. That is where you really see the music making happen. That's where you see the communication with the musicians. A really effective conductor can just ask of one little thing and it changes the entire scope of the piece, the interpretation. It's a challenge, but it's also a necessity. You just really have to have this ability to get your time. Make sure that you are using the time management correctly. But then, of course, communication is so important. So I don't know if I would call it necessarily a challenge, but it's more a necessity. That a conductor needs to possess. And I think that's what a lot of lay people may not realize when they think of the role of the conductor. You just see the performance part of it. You see the back of him, and you see the arms waving, and you see the energy, and that's all important too. But I think just how they are in rehearsal and how they manage their time and how they communicate with their musicians. Hands down when they get it. I mean, I'll share a really quick one that happened just this last November. I mentioned I conduct Youth Orchestra Los Angeles at the Torres High School site, and I programmed a piece of music by William Grant Still, the African American composer, the dean of African American composers, and it was a serenade, and it was a slow piece. It wasn't the large bombastic, things that we tend to do, but I wanted to do something that was more lyrical, more beautiful, so the students could, work on tone quality, strings can work on vibrato, things like that. And when we started working on it, clearly the kids didn't like it. They didn't really get it. They didn't grasp onto it. And I knew that was going to happen. As time went on, though, they were getting it. And it was starting to come together. But there was always a little bit of a glitch, and somebody entered wrong here, or this didn't quite sound as full as it could here. We got in that performance, and everything just clicked. I couldn't believe it, and I think I stood there with my mouth open, going, as I'm conducting, I'm trying to be professional about it, but I was just. Well, I don't want to say amazed, but I was that right there was why I do it. This piece of music that a few months back sounded not very good. And when you have a piece of music that the students don't like, that makes it that much harder. But they really did learn to enjoy it. And I spoke to them afterwards. I said, now, how many of you felt really good about that? And how many of you now enjoy the piece? And the vast majority of students raised their hands. So I think, I was able to introduce a piece of music to them that they weren't accustomed to, and they did a really great job with it. So that was a really gratifying moment for me. So yeah, when I see something like that happen, that's a pretty big program, and we have a lot of different things that are happening with that. One of the fun things we like to do is feature student soloists, and we have 2 student soloists that were selected by the Whittier branch of Music Teachers Association of California. We have, and actually it's interesting, these 2 young ladies are sisters, and they just happened to win. We had one student who, in a category of 13 and under, and so this one sister is going to be playing a movement of the Mozart Third Violin Concerto, and then her older sister, who won the senior division, is going to be performing a movement of the William Walton Viola Concerto. So we'll have 2 student soloists, and I think the audience always loves to see young people doing things that older people are usually known for doing. And we're looking forward to working with them. The other large scale piece are the Planets by Gustav Holst, his great symphonic suite. This is it's a popular piece because it requires a very big orchestra, not just the regular cast of members, but there's many auxiliary instruments, large percussion section, two harps, and we also have a women's choir that sings off stage with it. So it really is kind of a larger cast of characters than we are accustomed to. But I think that's so many of the great themes that are in there, and this particular piece of music. I mean, if you're a fan of John Williams or James Horner, William Goldsmith, Hans Zimmer, all these great movie scorers, they got their ideas from this piece. And if you listen to it, you go, oh God, that sounds like Star Wars, or oh, that sounds like Superman, whatever. It's you'll hear snippets of, oh, I think I heard that in the movie. Well, no, you heard it with Holst first. So I think the audience will be able to connect really well with that music.